This podcast is part of the Spoon Podcast Network, home of smart conversations that feed your mind.
Hi, I'm Amy Wu, and welcome to Women Innovators in Food and Farming, where I spotlight some of the entrepreneurs behind the innovation shaping the future of food and farming. I am an award-winning journalist specializing in writing about ag innovation and food innovation, and the founders of From Farms to Incubators, a multimedia platform that tells the stories of women in farming and in agriculture and food. I am really excited to have with me today our guest, Gail Becker, the founder of Caulipower. A short intro, and then we're going to jump right into the discussion. Gail is best known as an entrepreneur and again, the founder of Caulipower, a company in the better for you frozen food space, named as one of the top 10 world's most innovative food companies by Fast Company. The company reached more than 100 million in revenue in 5 years under Gail's leadership as CEO and captured more than 2% of the $5 billion US pizza market. She's been recognized for her achievements from publications including Fast Company, Forbes, and Inc. And she earned her master's degree in journalism from Northwestern University and a bachelor's of science in political science from UCLA. And welcome, Gail. It's super exciting to connect with you today.
Thank you so much. I'm the one who's excited.
Where are you joining us from today?
New York City.
New York City. And tell us a little bit more about yourself. I mean, are you a native New Yorker? And does food run in your family?
I am not a native New Yorker officially, but somewhere in here I sort of feel like I am. I'm actually a new New Yorker. I moved here about 2 years ago. Um, you know what I always say, Amy? It's easy to tell a story backwards. And I think when you tell my story backwards, it's easy to see, how I ended up in food. Although when I started, I definitely had no food experience. So let me
Mm.
tell you a little bit about what I mean. I'm a first generation American, and when my grandfather came here, he was a dairy farmer, and I used to
Mm.
work on the dairy farm. We'd have pet cows, and we'd take care of it when it was sick, and milk it, and all kinds of things. Food was, inadvertently in my blood. My mother always showed people that she loved them by cooking lots of food. And so that's sort of how I grew up. And then when she made too much food, which she invariably did, she would stick it in the freezer. So no wonder I ended up in the frozen food business.
Oh, that's quite a rich history and so forth. So you have a personal history actually with your grandfather, also starting on the dairy farming area. So tell us then, how did that lead you? Now we talked about the frozen food space. I'm just going to jump right into it. Tell us a little bit more about Caulipower and the story about how it was born.
Sure. So I worked in corporate America. And it was really at the time, and it was really about three things happening in my life at the same time. One, I became disenchanted with corporate America. I sort of worked my way up the top of the ladder and sort of just didn't really appreciate the view as much as I thought I would. Two, I'm the mom of two boys with celiac disease, and they were diagnosed at such a young age that there was no gluten free food in the store. So it gave me a really good perch from which to watch the industry evolve. And what I began to notice over the years was all the junk that the industry was putting in gluten free food. And, like many people, I sort of thought, oh, someone's going to do something about that. Really didn't think it was going to be me, but that's exactly what ended up happening. And it happened because my father had passed away. And I
Mm.
think when someone close to you, dies, you sort of realize the fragility of life. And that for me, I really wanted to do something more meaningful. I wanted to do something that was going to help people. I wanted to give them better food. So I put all of those things together, and that's what led me on my journey to, hey, I know I'm going to leave corporate America and start a
Mm.
company called Caulipower. And that's what I did in May of 2016.
Wow. So what I'm hearing is there were various parts that inspired the creation of
Mhm.
this. Actually, your
Mhm.
sons have both have celiac. Is that right? Disease. Can you share a little bit about that and how that connects with gluten free and food and all that for our listeners, please?
Sure. So celiac disease is an autoimmune disorder, which means that your body can't process gluten. So, for them, because there wasn't much of a gluten-free industry at the time, I had to make everything from scratch, like including for their birthdays. If I wanted to bring cupcakes, I had to make the cupcake and the frosting. And now, what I think is important to remember is that I started the company because my boys had celiac disease, but in no way do we consider ourselves a gluten-free company? We're a
Mm,
company that creates better for you food that tastes great and happens to be gluten-free. And the insight there, just to put a fine point on your question, the insight there was when my sons were little and their friends would come over for play dates, and I made lots of frozen pizzas for everyone, as we often did. My boys came to me at this on the side and said, "Mom, don't give our friends the gluten-free pizzas. Just give those to us. Give them the regular pizzas." And
mhm.
I remember thinking because they were embarrassed, right?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking at the time, wow, wouldn't it be great if everybody could just eat the same thing? And
Mm,
I distinctly remember having that thought and I guess filing it away somewhere so deep that I never thought about it again until I had the idea for Caulipower. And that is really the real ethos of the brand, is that everybody can share from the same plate. Everyone can finally eat the
mm,
same thing, even if we all have different reasons for eating it. Maybe you want something that's lower in sugar. Maybe you want something that's lower in calories. Maybe you want something that's gluten free.
mm,
Maybe you just want a great tasting pizza. Whatever
mhm.
brings you into the brand, we have something for you and we can all share from the same plate.
I really love that. I'm hearing a few different turning points. One is that you were in corporate America, correct, and it was kind of like
Mhm.
re-examining
Yes.
your career after a certain point. Second is your sons, and also the third is your father's passing away as well. But
Mhm.
at what point did you say, "I am going to create my own company and create Collie Power"? And where did you get the name from? I mean, it might seem obvious, but did it just hit you like, "Oh, here's the name"?
Certainly not. It was the opposite of obvious. It certainly was not obvious. And actually, in the beginning, I actually had another name that ended up someone had already taken it, and so then I was forced to go back to the drawing board and think of another one. So it's funny how things are born. But really, the sort of precursor to Cauliflower was just that frustration in corporate America, that wanting to do something on my own. My father came to this country. He was an entrepreneur, didn't speak the language, didn't have any money, started a small company, very small business, and actually, sold food. And I would accompany him on sales call and so forth, even though I didn't know what it was at the beginning when I was going through it. So it's so interesting how like I said, easy to tell a
Mm.
story backwards. All of these points in my life sort of led me on this path, which makes sense now, but at the time was very surprising.
Well, this is your first company, correct?
Yes.
So, how did you get it started? Literally, imagining this is how did you transition? It's becoming essentially an entrepreneur. For a lot
Yeah,
of folks, that's a huge leap.
it was a big leap. And I think in some ways, I was just talking about this to someone. In some ways, it sort of helped not having any food experience or any experience starting my own company,
Mm,
because that ignorance was really an opportunity, right? uh there were, I when I first went to different co-manufacturers to help me make, the cauliflower crust pizza, they looked at me like I was crazy and told me it couldn't be done or it shouldn't be done or no one would buy it, or on all the logical reasons that they knew from being in the industry so long. Well, it actually took someone who wasn't in the industry to sort of say, let's try it. So, I think Probably the biggest factor in me becoming an entrepreneur was the passing of my father, and
Mm,
realizing that, the best way to honor him would be to follow in his entrepreneurial footsteps. I really became sort of, enamored with the idea of doing something on my own for the very first time,
mm.
and never looking back on my life and thinking, wow, if only I could have or should have done this. So I just wanted to give myself the chance to try.
So, going back to the start of the journey, what are some of the things that you did to actually get the company uh, ramped up
Yeah.
and started and so forth? Yeah.
So, I did what really, I was always taught to do, which is if you don't know something, you learn. And so I hired people to teach me. I hired uh, a bunch of different consultants to teach me part of the business.
Hmm.
They took me to grocery stores. They walked me up and down the aisles. They gave me presentations to study. They gave me lots of data, and I was like a sponge. In fact, I like to think I still am a sponge, and I still
Hmm.
learn something new every day. And I think that's one of the things that attracted me to, becoming an entrepreneur in an industry that I didn't really know much about.
Hmm.
I always tell people the day you stop learning is the day you have to leave. And when I was in the corporate world, I did stop learning. And more importantly than that, I stopped caring. And I really wanted to be in something that I cared about, something
Hmm.
that was going to be meaningful to people. And so I was like a sponge then, and I'm still a sponge.
Now, taking going back to your history, you're a journalist and a communications professional,
Mhm.
right? By background, you have a master's degree from Northwestern, one of the best journalism schools. What was your original career path? I'm curious, and why? And then how did that end up? Did that end up helping you in your journey in your journey as being an entrepreneur?
It's such a good question, Amy, because I always say for me, and maybe for a lot of people these days, my career path was never a ladder. It's more like a jungle gym. And I started out in journalism. I always loved telling people stories. I loved people. I loved learning. So it seemed like a fantastic career choice for me. And I ended up being a journalist for many years, and I loved it. Um, and then for a whole host of reasons, I decided to leave that and try something else. So I've worked in journalism, I've worked in government, I've worked in corporate America, I worked in politics, I
Hmm.
worked in entertainment industry, and I worked in marketing, and then finally, started my own company. But what I think is so interesting is all of those things sort of gave me the skill set and the perspective to start my own company. Maybe even particularly, coming from sort of a big corporate marketing agency, because when you're a consultant of sorts,
Hmm.
right, you get a little peek into a bunch of different companies, and you get to see what works well and what doesn't work well, and you get to give advice, and
Hmm.
sometimes people take it and sometimes they don't take it. So for me, all of that really helped inform me to on the things I wanted to do and didn't want to do, and starting my own company, and pursuing the path I did.
Hmm. Now, in the early days of Caulipower, how exactly did you? What was the original product? I mean, how did you get it to be tasting like that or like that? And then how did you get it out there on the shelves?
Yeah, so you obviously have to make the product before you can sell it. So
Right.
the first product was the four original pizza SKUs: the crust, cheese, margarita, and veggie. Those were my four SKUs, and I'm really proud. Those are still our SKUs today. So obviously we have a lot more, but those we still carry all of those SKUs. And So yeah, we spent a long time trying to figure out ways to make it. There were a lot of co-manufacturers who turned me down, or my volume wasn't big enough, or said it couldn't be done, or didn't
Mm.
want to take the bet, or how many, how long do you have? Because I had to kiss a lot of princes. I mean, a lot of frogs. Sorry. So that was definitely part of it. And then when I had the product, I had 4 samples, and so I dropped them off. Whole Foods, if any of your listeners are interested, has this wonderful program where you can you sort of pitch your product in your local region. So at the time, I lived in Southern California, so that was my region. And so I, brought my 4 very expensive pizzas and, had them try it, and they loved it. And we grew a lot from there, obviously.
It's wonderful. So what now? I mean, it's been you it was it's inching towards 10 years, correct? The 10
More like 8, but
8
yeah,
years,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So what now for Caulipower? Maybe you can give some stories about how the original products have extended and grown, maybe with the taste of the audiences, or what, or I shouldn't say audiences, but rather the consumers, right? The people out there eating and who love to eat, and pizza fanatics. How has it grown with the products, and what's inspired that?
Well, we're very fortunate in the terms of our consumers are very generous with their information. They tell us what they like, they tell us what they don't like, they tell us what they'd like more of, they tell us what white space is. We're also very fortunate in that we have a lot of data. So we use that
Mm,
data to inform us. So we use the insights from our consumers, we use our data, we use our expertise, and we really look for white space in terms of what the company can create and deliver to consumers. So obviously we're sort of famous for our pizza. We have a lot of different SKUs now, which is fantastic. We just launched our new dill pickles
oh,
pizza, which is the first frozen dill pickle pizza. We're very excited about that. And then we also have a robust chicken line,
hmm,
which includes very high quality chicken coated in cauliflower and chickpea flour. And then we also just created pizza snacks, which
hmm,
is very excited and brings a whole new category of snacking and appetizers for us. And then we're working on some really we see a lot of white space in other categories that are ripe for innovation and ready to ripe for sort of better for you versions, really of the types of comfort foods that everybody loves and wants to enjoy.
hmm. Seems like increasingly there's an interest and movement towards wellness as connected with food, or sometimes people say food is medicine these days. Can you talk a little bit about that? Has that inspired any of the products, and also what you're seeing from what people want?
Yeah, well, I mean, it really is the whole thesis behind Caulipower, right? Is that we like to create food using the magic of vegetables. We're a very vegetable forward brand, and everything that is included in that. So, our goal is to make better for you versions of your favorite comfort foods, and it's why a lot of people come to us. People come to us for different things. As I said, sometimes they want something that's lower in calories, and we can deliver on that.
Mm,
Sometimes they want better ingredients, sometimes they want gluten free, sometimes they just want great tasting, sometimes they want convenience. I think what's interesting about the way that Cauliflower innovates, it really has to deliver on taste, nutrition, and convenience. Very easy to get, to hit on one of those things. A little bit easier, but not impossible to hit on two. Very, very hard to create products that deliver on 3. And I think, when you look at what Power stands for and our products, it's also worth noting things that, like, that didn't make the cut over the years because
mhm,
they delivered on 1 or 2 of those elements, but not all 3.
mhm. Now, what drove you? You talked a little bit about the early days, getting it on the shelf, kissing a lot of frogs, I believe is what you
Mhm.
said.
Yeah.
What kept you going? It is really not easy being an entrepreneur in general, right? So, what really kept you moving forward?
It is to say it is not easy is the biggest understatement of my life. I would say, and probably any entrepreneur would echo that same feeling. It is definitely the hardest thing I have ever done, and it's really life to the nth degree, right? It's the hardest, most wonderful, most gut wrenching, most hair pulling, most remarkable thing I have ever done, and will have ever done outside of my children. So what has kept me going and what continues to keep me going is honestly hearing from our consumers.
Mm,
And I say that because since the beginning of Caulipower, I have read every comment on our Instagram, every direct message, every email, every phone call, every handwritten note. I have taken in all of that, and I learn from all of it, and it's really what keeps me going. Is to know that we've given people more time, less guilt, more energy, more engagement with their
mm,
families, time to do things that they love other than, spending an hour and a half making a pizza crust out of cauliflower from scratch. So that is really what keeps me going is hearing from our consumers.
mm. On that note, what might a day in your life look like on a weekday these days? A
Okay.
mishmash.
Yeah, mishmash. I usually get up pretty early, like 5 a.m. Probably work on email for a couple hours, go to the gym, come back and, start my day, have calls, have meetings, have more calls, more meetings. And then we have dinner, and then after dinner I usually get back on email or get back on our teams chat, and then I start all over again the next day.
And in terms of the team, how did you end up building the team? How big is the team now? Actually, maybe tell us a little bit about the basics of Collie Power and the company. How many staff do you have, and how many offices do you have? Is it international as well, or?
It's international in the sense that we operate in Canada, and we also have through U.S. military commissaries. Our products are offered in military commissaries around the world, but not outside that. We have about 50 people. They work around the country, different places around the country, and we also have like a really nice mix of backgrounds. I think
Mm,
you have a lot of people now, particularly who come from different aspects of the food industry. They come from huge companies. They come from little companies. They come from all kinds of backgrounds, have tremendous expertise, and then we also have people who, kind of like me, who came from another industry, really has always been taken with food, wants to help people, wanted to turn their life around. And we have some of those people too who have really just, been the heart and soul of the growth of the company.
oh, that's really nice. Now, in terms of innovation, how does or maybe has innovation played a role in the product itself? Maybe either at the development or maybe at the operations at the company or in the research.
Yeah, well, we do look at a lot of data. We look at a lot of data. We look at those insights. We hear from our consumers. We're always in retail. We're always looking what's new. We definitely keep our pulse on things. And then, we create in categories where it's ripe for innovation, and where we can really add value and add, some nutritional benefit, and really, concentrate on being great tasting, but also better for you. We have an entire commercialization team and
Mm,
development team. And, most people don't realize, but it can take, Some of our products have taken a year to create. Other products have taken 2 years. That dill pickle pizza we just launched took us almost 2 years to create. I think people
Oh, wow.
probably don't realize that, items take that long to bring to market.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. Actually, I love dill pickle, so I'm gonna go and pick some up.
Well, it's
So,
exclusive at Whole Foods right now, so run,
yes.
don't walk, but, soon we'll be rolling out to other retailers nationwide.
Yeah. So, maybe share a little bit about that. Why did it end up being 2 years? What was it that actually, took it from beginning to end? Yeah.
Are you talking about the dill pickle?
With dill
Yeah,
pickles.
yeah. I mean, just to use that as an example, although we have many products that have taken 2 years, but, we had to look at a lot of data, see if it could be done. We have a lot of trial and a lot of error and a lot of failure,
Mm,
um, and, a lot of taste tests, and then the commercialization, and then and then when you have your first production run, something doesn't go right, then you have to change it. So it takes a long time to get it right. And because we're
mm,
so particular about delivering the best possible experience to our consumers, we really do want to get it right. So to get something that is both innovative, never been done, will surprise and delight consumers, and not to mention the packaging and the marketing and all of that, and then hitting resets at retailers, that's about a 2-year process you're looking at.
mhm. And during that journey, were there any times when you hit a specific challenge, and how did you end up overcoming that? I imagine there's a lot of peaks and valleys as
Oh,
you.
100%. I mean, I've had some pretty
Any.
amazing days at
Uh,
Caulipower and some pretty horrific days. I mean, there's no question about, how hard and taxing, scaling a business can be, particularly in the early days when you just don't have the kind of, girth or success or money or team or whatever. You're just, you're going by on a hope and a prayer. But I think that's what makes entrepreneurs so special is, sometimes a hope and a prayer is enough to keep you going.
what are some of the things that you have yet maybe accomplished with Power, and or you hope to accomplish with it?
Oh, I think we've only just scratched the surface. We are in food service, which is exciting. And we're in about 5,000 restaurants, and that's fantastic. I think there's a lot more white space to go there. And there's still a lot of, category expansion and day part expansion and retailer expansion. So all kinds of things that we can do, and deliver to our most precious consumers.
You talk a little bit, Gail, about does Cauliflower engage in any sort of work where it's connected with the community or giving back, or yourself being a female entrepreneur? Maybe you talk a little bit about do you mentor other younger entrepreneurs, or have you been mentored?
Yeah, well, both,
Uh,
certainly both. I have definitely been mentored by a number of female entrepreneurs, and I try and give back where I can. I'm very, one of the great things about starting your business slightly older and having a lot of different experience prior is, I'm very comfortable saying what I don't know and what I needed to learn and what I learned the hard way. And, if I can give that back to to
mm.
younger entrepreneurs or newer entrepreneurs and sort of help them avoid some of the pitfalls that I did, that's super meaningful to me and very important. And I will always strive to do that.
Now, do you like to cook, or talk a little bit about like outside of work? Is how is food or cooking a part of it, or is it that after work you're like, okay, no, no more?
I love cooking. I love cooking. I love cooking. I love feeding. I love, while I wouldn't consider myself a foodie, I
Hmm.
like to call myself, I don't know, I made up a word called a meal list. And I call myself a meal list because I love the art of the meal. I love the sort of setting the table and creating a wonderful ecosystem for the food to deliver. I love having friends and family around the table. I love showing them how I feel about them by spending time, creating food. Creating food is nourishment to them.
Mm.
I love the whole dining experience. And, I don't necessarily like if, when push comes to shove, I would go to like a hole in the wall restaurant more than I would go to a very fancy restaurant. I like something that, you know, people feel very comfortable. People really feel like they can open up and take their time and sort of, savor the food and savor the company.
Nice. So, what are some of your hobbies or passions outside of work, or what can you be found doing on a weekend?
Well, I don't have a lot outside outside of work, but one thing since I've moved to New York that my husband and I have loved doing is we walk, and we walk a lot. We will set out to like on a 10-12 mile walk. We'll walk up and down the city. Our goal is to hit every street in Manhattan. And so we've gotten over a couple years, we've hit a fair amount, but luckily, we still have a lot to go and explore new areas and try different foods and meet different people and just discover along the way. That's probably, one of my favorite things to do.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much, Gail, again, for taking the time and sharing your story with us and inspiring us. I'm going to sign off until the next episode. Please, again, check out our new podcast, Women Innovators in Food and Farming. Thank you again very much, Gail, for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.